Hi, everyone. This is Tariwe Mari, and welcome back to Let's Talk Finances with Tari. And this week, we are continuing with the episode of talking about trauma and just understanding how that kind of impacts our money, our relationships, and everything we do, even with ourselves. Like, how does that also impact, like, finding ourselves, being authentic to ourselves? And today, I'm joined again with Coach Mel. And yeah, we're going to be doing a different series on this trauma, but there's a lot to talk about. Because each time when you have an episode, we realize, okay, we also need to be talking about this. So today, we're going to be continuing with where we ended last time, of talking of how trauma kind of affects or covers your authenticity. Like, how does it, like, when you're so blinded with trauma, how does it affect you finding yourself? Like, sometimes you see many people, they don't really realize their blind spots. You'll be like, this person is not really a
Need
woke
to
person, but
go.
anyway, we shouldn't judge people. And yeah, Coach Mel, can you just introduce yourself again?
Hi, everyone. I'm Coach Melania Mashanduze from the Mindful Warpreneur. I am a certified personal development and personal leadership coach, and I've been talking about trauma and helping my clients to heal from their past traumas, especially intergenerational traumas. Yeah.
Yes, wonderful. That's a great work we are doing. And I also added like trauma, like healing trauma in terms of our monies. But sometimes you have, and you find like if you have so many traumas, it even affects the relationship with your money. And
Yes.
many people, we don't really understand that we need to have that good relationship with our money, like your bestie kind of vibe with your relationship. So as we said that today, we're just going to be touching on the, like, when you are finding yourself. Like last time when we ended, you mentioned about the first thing you need to do in this journey of healing before we even go into understanding about colonialism, how it affected us, how it affected our identity. You need to find yourself.
Yes.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because for me, this journey of finding myself, I started it in 2019 when I
Wow.
was 4 years. That's why I was in the journey of just understanding, okay, who is Tari? Like, why am I even here on earth? Because I was just tired with this life of, okay, living, wanting to be like other people, people pleasing and all that. So for me, one story which I always love sharing about, I had serious low self-esteem issues because I was born as a stutterer. So I had serious low self-confidence issues. So in 2019, that was the year I started asking myself, like, but is this all this to this life? Like, I'm
Mm.
just this shy person. I can't even go towards my dreams. What is it about me? So I started questioning. I started questioning God. I started researching and just understanding this whole journey. So you know this thing is, well, I don't know how does it work, but I remember this Sunday I went to church, and the pastor that day, she preached about finding
You.
yourself, and I was like, this word is just meant for me today,
Oh, you.
because I was just in that journey of just like questioning, probing questions like, why was I even born, why am I here?
Mm.
I always, people say that we need to have a purpose, but what is it, what is my purpose?
This is
I didn't
my
even know what was
purpose.
my
Yeah.
purpose by then. So
Mm.
I think for me, going through that journey, it kind of helped me. And I don't want to lie, since 2019, I have had like shifts in my life, in terms of my career, in terms of my finances, my relationships. Everything just shifted with me just understanding and being self-aware of my blind spots. All these years I was working with my blind spots. And I always say, now I'm no longer shy about it. Like, back then I was really a bad person, I was really a bad friend. And I always say to my friends who stick to me, like, hey, you guys, you really love me,
You're
because back
strong.
then, if I get like, for me then, I, I wouldn't want to associate with that person like now. So you see, so I
Mm.
think also like that thing of just going like, coming home to yourself, just finding yourself, just asking those serious
Mm.
questions, and the answers will start like coming to you. Like, I don't know if you want to add more, that since this is like your line of what you really assist clients on.
Okay, so for me, mostly, I'm happy for you that you managed to find yourself, you managed to heal yourself, because before you heal yourself, you need to know who you are, who you really are, and you need to accept the weaknesses that you have and to turn them into your stronger points or visions of you. It doesn't matter what you are going through. What matters most is you accepting that, okay, this was me, but what else can I be? Who else can I be? But in finding who else can I be, is that going to be the authentic me? if I was to look at myself in 10, 15, 20 years, will I still be happy to say, that is still me? That is still me.
Mm,
And I haven't, when you meet people say, oh, she hasn't changed a bit. Like, but that's mostly facial wise. But can they also say the same thing about your character, about who you really are, not
yeah.
just your facials, right? Just to give you an
Mm,
example, I've got my brother's ex-wife. We haven't been talking, I think, for like 3, 4 years, and she emigrated to the UK. Not because we're on bad terms, but we just lost communication. So I found on Facebook and I said, "Oh, hey, how are you? What are you doing? Where are you? What?" And then we started chatting on WhatsApp, and she video called me like 2 days ago. And we were so happy, like to reconnect, to just catch up. And she said, "You haven't changed anything. You are still the same person. You still talk the same. You still care. You still like want to know what's happening in people's life, how you can help." And because I love helping. Like I like helping people. And that's why I always say, even when I'm posting on my Facebook, like if I don't help you to change anything, like just anything, whether it's your body, whether it's doing gardening, whether it's loving yourself, then we shouldn't be friends, because it means um I'm not being the real me to you. All right.
yes.
So for me, finding who you really are and sticking to that and being able to look back and say, I am still happy about myself, I'm still happy about that person, then that's being authentic to me.
True, true. I really love that. And I can also add to that, like when you're authentic to yourself, that's when like you actually understand. Because many people, as I've mentioned in my introduction, like so many people, they don't really even actually realize their blind spots because they are just too
Mm,
blinded, like, okay, I'm a perfect person. But what
mm,
I've come to realize when I was working in this gender, I'm not a perfect person. And
yes.
I realize my weaknesses and I try every day to work on them. That's why I always want to say to people that, you know what, don't compete with anyone. You are your own
Mm,
competition. You've got like a lot of
mm,
things to compete with. Like, okay, this is one of the practice which I do every day. I read it in this book. A monk who saw this Ferrari. Like every day, you just need to do a stock take of your day. Like, okay, what really went well, what didn't go well. So when you're doing that stock take, you actually realize, okay, I think this the way I reacted to this, it wasn't really a good way of
mm,
doing it. If you're
mm,
competing with yourself, if you're competing with yourself, you say, okay, tomorrow I will try to do better, or tomorrow I'll try
mm,
to react better or to respond better, even if I didn't like this person the way she said it, but maybe I should have responded better and the conversation would have ended well. I also find it like even now if I have like issues with my husbands, with married people we always like have
yeah.
misunderstandings and
Yes.
like it's a normal thing. So I now I realize like, okay, the way we used to handle our misunderstandings before I actually find myself, it's actually different now. Sometimes I just
Mm,
feel like, okay, maybe he said something I didn't like, and maybe I just feel like, okay, maybe he's not in the right mood. Maybe let me
mm.
just give him time.
Some space,
Maybe
yeah.
let me give him time. Then maybe we can continue with this tomorrow when we are all in a better space or when we are all
Mm,
in an emotional space. But before it would be like I would say, you can't do
mm.
that to me, and
Why are you
and
not
all
answering me? I need my answers now.
that kind of thing. So I think also when you start when you have that self-awareness, when you're authentic to yourself, you can actually say, okay, I think this is a blind spot. I think
Mm,
this I can actually do better. And you can also realize your strengths. Like with me now, I also like work on my strengths. Like when as I mentioned in the first episode we did, like when I was going through our history, like I realized like many people in my generation, they were so gifted to use their hands, and now I tap into that because that's a gift. Like I'm a very creative person. I love making dresses for myself and wearing them. I love writing. Like I love anything to do with creative. I love making hair. I didn't really understand it because at school I used to make people hair, and I remember when I first
mm,
relocated here in South Africa, my first job I used to earn 1,000 rand, and it was not enough. What made me to survive in those years, it was making people's hair. So you see, like
mm,
that creativity, like it's something which was passed on to me. So now I also tap into that and just understanding, okay, what other gifts do I have? What else can I do with my hands, which can actually like kind of bring me money? And what I also wanted to add on, like when you mentioned about loving yourself. So as I mentioned that when I started this journey, the other thing which I started learning was to love myself. Because
Mm.
before I was that people pleasing person, I used like to feel like, okay, maybe I need to buy someone gifts for them to be my friend. Not understand that if people want you and if you are like aligned to that person, you can still be friends without like buying them. But
Yes.
if you buy them, if they don't want to be playing with you, or if you're not aligned, that friendship is not gonna work. So I think
Mm.
also this journey of just loving yourself, appreciating yourself as you are. Like with me, I think the other thing which maybe today you might not even hear a starter for me is because I accepted myself that, you know what, I'm a starter. That's how I was born. That's how God
Mm.
created me. He has his own reasons, which I don't know why, but I get to accept that, you know what, I'm a starter. That's who I am. And I just need to embrace it and accept it. And the moment when I started embracing it and accepting it, even talking made me what was a bit easier. I remember there was a time where I was even shy to record myself or shy to talk in front of people. But when I continued doing it, practicing it, I felt like, okay, it's not becoming a second nature for me. And sometimes I can even say, oh, I actually
Wow.
take conversation without even stuttering. You see?
Yeah.
So I think it also goes back like just loving yourself. I think many people,
Mm.
and I always also blame, we said we should not blame, but let me just use the word
Yes.
blame because I can't think of another English. I also blame the way we are groomed, especially in our cultures, in the Zimbabwean culture. The girl child, she's groomed, Kuti. If you're married, you have to do this for your husband. You have to do this. There's no, even on those kitchen parties, there's no one way they say, like, you also need to have time for yourself. It's always
Also,
about do this for this. So we are kind of like being groomed to be loving another person and
yes,
leaving
and not
ourselves
forget
behind, which
ourselves. Yeah.
and we kind of
Mm.
forget ourselves in that. So for me, I think it's something which our elders need to relearn from. Like for me, like what I teach my children now, especially my daughter, is you need to love yourself because you can't pour from an empty cup. If I don't have
Mm.
any love, what am I gonna be pouring out? It's hatred, of course. So I
Mm.
don't really understand how they got this thing like everything is husband, husband, husband. Yes, they must give us the husband advice, but also give us advice for ourselves as well.
Actually, on that one, I read this about Frederick Douglass. He said, it's easier to build strong children than to fix a broken man. Like when you were talking about loving your daughter, I show my kids the love that I know I never received. That's why for me, talking about intergenerational trauma is very important because it has helped me to realize certain things that I never got. And if I had received them as a child, I would be a different
Mm,
person. That's why I said, cut it, build a new generation starting from you. So for me, I've learned to love my daughters. They've got their weaknesses. I still show them. I would rather buy books and read to them and ask them, what have you learned? Like today, I bought two books. One was to talk about it's okay to make mistakes. I forgot the name.
yes.
I'll tell you the name next time. It's okay to make mistakes. There was this little elephant who tried to help his brother, his sister, and his mom, and he kept making mistakes, breaking his mother's chain, blowing the leaf that the sister was painting. But the family still showed him love. They still. So the
Mm,
point was, it's okay to make mistakes. But for us,
mm,
like you were saying, we as women mostly, we were just going to say, do this, do this, do this. Even if you make a mistake, you are the one who end up apologizing. Like
yes.
if someone else does something wrong to you, you will still apologize because you think you're the one who was wrong. We blame ourselves. Like we say, we blame ourselves. But what if we say, okay, hang on, I want to love myself. Because how else am I going to love my kids if I don't love myself? How else am I going to love my partner if I
Mm,
don't love myself? But for you to actually start in loving yourself, you need to find yourself. You need to find that deep inner voice that tells you what exactly does it mean to be you, your wholeness, you, your authentic
mm,
yourself, your like what is it like? Whatever that defines your values and beliefs must come from deep within you. It's like when you're dating and then you realize that you actually don't know this person. But how do you know that you actually don't know this person? It's coming from the values and the beliefs that you know or expect this person should be doing this or should believe in this. But you only know those true values and true beliefs if you know yourself. And that's what brings happiness. And I'm happy for you that you found yourself, you started loving yourself, and it really helped in your relationship. For me, I'm grateful that we did this marriage pre-course, which was really intense. And I always recommend it to young couples, people who want to get married, that if you do that course, it will actually help you, because it talks about all the issues that happens in marriage, how to make decisions in marriage, whether it's financial, family, which church to go to, when to do what, traveling, savings, everything. It touches each and every topic that really affects marriage. The point of that pre-marriage course is for you to see your alignment with your partner, like
Yes.
how are you going to be able to live with each other, because it's like a survey. So you complete your own, your partner completes their own, and then you meet and you discuss the differences. But it's not you who's going to be, there's a facilitator behind. And it's like a marriage counseling, but the counseling that you do before marriage. And it helps you to determine, okay, so this is how this person thinks about this, and how's that going to help our marriage. Which I think it's also should be important for us to do that self-survey. Check on yourself. How much do you love yourself? Who are you? What are your true values and true beliefs? What else can you change about yourself? Because we always assume that we can change other people, or oh, my husband will get better when we get married. But you can't change a
Recipe
person.
disaster.
You have to change you. It's either you're going to compromise your values and beliefs and suck it up, or sweep everything under the carpet, or find your true self and find someone that aligns with your beliefs and your values. And you only be able to, and that's the only way also for you to break the intergenerational traumas, especially those traumas that affect marriages and also affects the money beliefs that also affect marriage.
Marriage, true. I love that. And to anyone who is in courtship, please, you must get Coach Mel's contact and go for that course. I really recommend it. With us, we ended up doing a marriage course last year. There was one which was done at our church, and we were like, I think we should have done this before we got married. But anyway, we're glad that yes, before we got married. But I was glad that we did it, because it also like kind of helped us to see some of the blind spots, some of the things we need like to rework on, or kind of like, okay, these ones I think we are doing great, and let's keep on doing it more. And I just want to add more on what you spoke about, the values and beliefs. What I find with many people and most of my clients, sometimes people, they don't really understand what is their value. What is their values? What is their true values? What are their true beliefs? Because I think, especially with the societal norms, many people will just go with the trends. Like some people, they're just like following the trends and all that, but they don't really understand your values. And you find like it's so easy to get swayed over and be moved like wind if you don't really understand your values as a person, which goes back to that self-awareness and finding yourself. Because the moment you find yourself, you kind of say, okay, these are my values. So even if trends come, because trends, they do come and go, fashion comes in and go, and if you understand your values, like, okay, these are my values, you can still say, okay, I'm not going to be swayed by anything because I go by these values and all that. So for me, I think going through that self-awareness exercise really kind of helped me and say, okay, you know what, these are my values, and this is what I should like really kind of stay on both. This is what kind of like now I understand what activities makes me happy, what activities drains my energy, and now I can even sense energies. Like sometimes you talk to someone and you just say, okay, this person just a energy trainer and I don't want to associate with them. And for me, I always say, like, not everyone is your client, but sometimes in this, like especially in our coaching business, sometimes we are so in need of money, we are so in desperation of money, that we end up taking clients we know for sure that we are not aligned with. So with me, what I've even always done, but I think now it also comes because of that self-awareness and me understanding my values. Like if I have that strategy call, that first call which I have with the client, I can actually sense like, no, this client I can't work with. If I sense that, I'm happy to cut the call and say, you know what, I am feeling we are not aligned, because you can actually sense it. We are so gifted to sense that we've got that willpower to sense like, okay, these energies are not really aligned. So I think it also goes back to like when you're understanding when you understand yourself, you understand your values, and you know that, okay, not everyone is your client, not all the money is supposed to be coming to you, right? And the money is supposed to be coming to you, it will come, and the clients which are aligned to you, you can actually You can actually feel them.
Okay.
Like the moment you start having a conversation, you can actually feel like, okay, I think we are connected, we are aligned,
Mm.
and this person I can actually work with. But now I just wanted to address that person who said, okay, I don't really know where to start. Like, okay, maybe I'm now in this journey of finding myself, and I'm actually picking like, okay, I've got these traumas, but I don't know how to kind of start healing that journey. How does it work? So I just wanted to start with talking about like the emotional release, because the moment when you
Mm.
start realizing, finding yourself, you can actually say like, okay, I think my inner child is wounded. So with me, when I started doing this work, I realized that I've got a lot of inner child wound, because the other issue which came up with me was like the father wound. Like my dad was there, but emotionally he wasn't there. We
Mm.
didn't have that love and all that. So now looking back, I also like look at, okay, I think that's the reason why I started like having relationships at a younger age, because I was looking for that love in the wrong
That love, yeah.
places, that kind
Mm.
of thing. So that's the thing I started working on and healing myself and saying, you know what, okay, even if my dad was showing up, like paying our school fees, doing all that,
Mm.
but he was never there to father me as a father. I don't even know what fatherly love is, because he wasn't there. So I started like, okay, healing that inner child, working with her and saying, okay, we never had this. I acknowledge you, I feel you, and let's work on this. Like now I love doing this healing modality, which I just came to realize this year, of tapping. Like with the tapping, the one thing which I love about tapping, I don't know if you know about it. Like one thing which I love about tapping, like like you start acknowledging those negative emotions. When you acknowledge those negative emotions, then you start going on to the positive emotions. So it kind of like help you to heal that inner child,
Release the negative and then bring in the positive.
bring in the positive. Because sometimes what I find with affirmations, it's kind of like, okay, it makes us to only talk about the positive, but we are not acknowledging that negative space which is there, which needs to be healed. But for me, I realized that inner child of me was really wounded, and sometimes and when I looking back into my marriages, so it's like sometimes I would like kind of project the way my father was doing to my husband, and we end up having unnecessary arguments. Was it's me who just projecting? You see, sometimes people, we end up like not understanding other people because of our own projections or
Yes.
our own fears. So I
Mm.
just want us to talk about that. Like, okay, when we are now understand ourselves, how do we go through that journey of healing ourselves? What healing modalities can we do just to heal this trauma?
Okay. So actually, just to go back to what you experienced as a child, I also experienced the same thing. My father, I love my father, but I never received that. Maybe my siblings did, but looking back, and even when I started this journey of healing from past traumas, like especially childhood traumas, and also just trying to be a better life coach, I
Mm,
needed to look back at all these things. And I realized that it's my childhood that mostly affected the way I looked at myself as an
yeah.
individual, because
Mm,
I was the last born. Well, I am the last born, but I was born 3 years after, and yet all the other kids, I have got a 2 year gap.
mm,
So first you feel like you're a mistake,
yeah.
and then you so you actually need to heal from that first. Like, okay, I'm not a mistake. I didn't ask to be born. I am here, but maybe I'm here to serve a purpose. So what's my purpose?
Yes.
And then you move on. Like growing up, I was so scared of my dad, not just because he was a headmaster for a
I can
very long
resonate with
time.
that.
Yeah, but because like the moment he's walking into the house,
We run away, go to
we'd
our
rather be in the
bedrooms.
bedroom or in the kitchen pretending like we're doing something. But that's trauma.
Mm,
You for them, for adults, generational, it's respect. And they feel good about it because, like, oh, my
mm,
kids respect me, they give me my space and whatnot. But what if it's actually them running or hiding away from you because they don't know how to even address you or to have conversations with you?
yes.
You see, so that inner child is already wounded because you grow up with fear. That's why you end up being in relationships looking for that fatherly love, but you enter that relationship with fear. What if he leaves me? What if he doesn't leave me? And that's when you end up being in an abusive relationship as well, because you just think you're respecting him and he is showing his kind of love, but it's actually maybe not true love. So
Mm,
moving on from that, and I'm so grateful that my husband is a very loving, supportive. He loves our kids, like he loves me like beyond. And I'm so grateful for that. And I think I found that gap that was missing. And he also helped me in this journey of healing and healing my childhood trauma, because I was open and I explained to him. I always said to him that this is what I went through. How else can I improve as a person? And he's open to explain how I can be a better person. But for emotional release, like you're saying, you need to actually process the emotions that take you back to that trauma. Because if you don't process, then you're not dealing with the root cause of your trauma.
True.
And when you process, I always say all feelings are valid.
True,
And
yes.
all thoughts are valid. So even if we talk about affirmations, even the negative side, which makes us want to say the positive affirmations, is important. Because there's no way I'm going to say to myself, I'm strong. Why do I need to remind myself I'm strong? It means there's a negative feeling that says you're not strong, right? So you need to process your emotions. You need to process your thoughts. You need to look at your values and beliefs and see how they affect your feelings and your thoughts, and be able to let them go. Because if you don't let them go, then every day when you say your positive daily affirmations, it's pointless, it's meaningless, because you haven't let go of that negative one. So process the negative, move to the positive. And when you process, press, release, and let go, and then bring in. Because the moment you process, press, and release, that's when you bring in the real you. That's what
Yes.
I think. Yeah.
Okay, and I love that process, press, and release, PPR. So yeah, that's like you need to process, press, and release. And for me, I always say like your story with your dad also kind of resonates with me as well. But for me, when I was going through this journey, I kind of also forgiven him, because what I came to realize that he didn't have the capacity to love us. Because as I've mentioned in our first podcast, that my grandfather had 7 wives. So imagine the 7 wives. He also didn't know like what his
You
fatherly
didn't
love.
know
He
how
didn't
to
know it.
love.
Both the way they grew up, it was survival of the fittest. I don't want to be lying. Both each wife, they were competing. So you find like our family is a very big family. Both each wife would have 7 children, 9 children, 10 children. So there was no like that fatherly attention there. So where was that love going to be coming from? As I mentioned, that you can't pour from an empty cup. So I think also just understanding and like when you understand those wounds, you also need to forgive. And then when you forgive the people, you feel like, okay, where the wounds are really coming, work on it. And as Coach Mel have said, press, PPR. We said press what?
Process, press, and release.
Oh yes, process, press, and release, PPR. Process, press, and release, and start working on that journey. Because the moment you don't let it go, to be honest, it will continue wanting you, and you still continue making the same mistakes. I always say, okay, it's good to make mistakes, as you have said. It's good to make mistakes, but you can't continue making the same mistakes 1,000 times.
No.
Right. So once you make your mistakes, you need to learn from those mistakes and look at ways you can actually do better. And when you're in that authenticity space, you need to understand your mistakes, learn from them, and not just to say, this is how I am. The other people will just say, this
Yes,
is how I
this is
am.
how I am.
This is how I talk to people.
Nothing has worked, or nothing, or not. No one will change me.
You see, so you need also to just kind of be like, I think you need to go to that space of just realizing and be authentic and honest with yourself. Because many people, we lack that thing of being honest with ourselves, because we just feel like, okay, this is the way I am, and you can't be the way you are if you're hating other people, or if you continue projecting your fears to other people. That won't work. And if you're in the space of healing your traumas, you need to let go. You need to be honest with yourself. You need to be very authentic. You need to be self-aware. So I think we can just kind of close off for today, and we continue on our next podcast. So I don't know if you have any last words you want to leave our audience with.
Okay. Yes. So after processing, pressing, and releasing, which is letting go, I think it's also important to just try and, like, when you let go, you, like I said, that's when you find yourself, meaning you are now reconnecting with yourself, finding your true authentic self, right? In that space, you need to create boundaries as well, because you don't want, I'm not saying ignore and cut off the past, like it's an immediate cut off and I'm not looking back. Yes, you will look back, of course, you think about the
Mm.
past, you think about, like, even now, we're still talking about our childhood traumas, right? But there is a boundary that you need to set to say, I can think about this up to this point. Because if I go beyond
Mm.
that point, then I'm going back. Then it means I haven't actually let go. So
Yes.
before you actually decide that, you know what, I'm letting go, set boundaries to say, hang on, when I get to this point, it triggers this. And that's when
Mm.
the importance of healing comes. So you process, you press on it, find healing, work on it, and then be able to let go. Otherwise, you keep
Mm.
going back. That's when you end up saying, oh, it didn't work. I tried it. I tried counseling. I tried therapy. I tried coaching. It didn't work. But have you actually tried to process, to press in that pressing, reassuring yourself, setting boundaries, even with people that bring you back those traumas? Set boundaries. That for me,
Yes.
I don't mind even cutting off, not cutting off, like, but just setting boundaries, even for family. Like I remember there was a time I wasn't talking to my dad. Not that I don't love him or I don't respect him, but I wanted to find not justifications of why I didn't get that love from him. But I mean, he also, I don't think as a man, like from that generation, really understands. Some do, but for him to
Yes.
actually understand, how do I love my daughter? Because for them, it was just, as long as I can provide for my family, I can pay school fees, I can give food and whatever, clothes,
Yes.
a roof over your head. But then they didn't really know about the other side of actually loving your child. So I gave myself boundaries to say, okay, this is whenever I talk to him, and like usually they say, "Ndakakuendesa kuchikoro, but look at this, look
Mm-hmm.
at
You
this,
don't
look at this,"
appreciate.
right? I don't, for me, that's a boundary. The
Mm.
moment you start bringing that up, it means you're taking back to my childhood. You're telling me that I should not really grateful, but I should be scared or I should respect you because of the things that you did for me, which is not bad at all. But what dent does it leave in my heart?
Yeah.
So I have set boundaries. Even if he brings that up, I don't respond to that message. I would rather be quiet because I don't want to have that conversation again, because I end up saying things that I don't want to say, which end up being
Much. Yeah.
disrespectful. Yes.
Mm.
So in that moment of pressing, processing, pressing, and releasing, before you release, before you let go, set boundaries. Boundaries are very important because even I'm setting boundaries. This negativity, I don't want it. So protect your inner peace, if I can put it
Yes.
that way. Then you'll be able to let go.
True. True.
Don't
I
don't
love
be
that.
fake. Don't be fake about it. Be real.
Mm.
To actually know that.
Honestly.
Don't just do it for the sake of doing it to ignore the negative feelings. Remember what we said. Don't ignore,
Mm.
because every feeling is valid. But for
Mm.
you to actually know the validity of each feeling, you actually have to deal with it, process it, press on it, find what triggers that, set boundaries, let go, and that will be the real you.
Yes, yes. And I just wanted to add on that what you mentioned about the triggers. Like sometimes also just to have like a journaling of just noting down your what triggers you. That's what's also I started like exercising on when I
Mm,
started like my healing journey. Because like sometimes we are so unaware of some of the triggers, but the more you go on this journey, you start saying, okay, this thing triggers me. And you kind
mm,
of also go deeper, like why does it still trigger you? Then you find maybe there's a childhood memory around that scenario of what had happened. Then it can also help you to you on that. But I think our next topic, let's talk about setting boundaries, because I think that's also a huge topic. It's a whole topic, we can just talk about it. When we're talking about boundaries, we're saying, hey, with our parents, boundaries, with our friendships, with our
boundaries,
relatives, with
yes.
our
Yes.
in-laws, like with our siblings, like there are so much boundaries we need to do. Even if so, when we are doing our decisions with money, we need to set boundaries.
Mm,
So I think our next topic, you must stay tuned. We'll be talking of how can you set healthy boundaries and how that
boundaries.
can help you in your healing
Heal
journey. And
from trauma.
remember,
Yes.
yes. And remember that healing is a journey, it's not a
Mm,
destination. Because
yes.
sometimes you might feel like, okay, I've healed in this space, and you don't realize maybe there's another trigger which might come somewhere which you haven't realized. So it's a journey. You continue
Mm,
working on yourself every day. Like I always say, inner work is an everyday work, and
It
we
is.
need not to take it lightly. See what works for you. If affirmations, if tapping, if whatever works for you, go with what works for you. But the
Mm.
principles still remain the same. And being a healed version is the best thing in your life. Like I don't want to lie, I've been so happy with the way I am today, the way I've been in the past 6 years. So, Coach Mel, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to have you and talking about this. And now
You're
looking at the
welcome.
time, looking at the time, I was saying, this is just interesting conversation. So, guys, next time we're talking about boundaries. So please make sure you do click on that notification bell so that you can see when we put our next video. But for now, bye and be blessed.
Bye. Thank you.